Hello, everyone. My name is Heriberto Ramirez, but feel free to call me Eddie, and I am the Access to Justice Specialist here at the San Diego Law Library.
My name is Luz Villalobos, and I'm a library assistant at the San Diego Law Library.
And my name is Valerie Gregg, and I'm a reference librarian for partnerships and communication at the San Diego Law Library. And we're here to talk to you today about how the San Diego Law Library has worked on engaging the Latinx community with COVID-19 legal resources. So the first thing I want to ask you is, have you ever even heard of the San Diego Law Library? Just to let you know, the San Diego Law Library is a public library devoted to legal resources that serves the people of San Diego County. And what that means is that it is open to everyone. Every county in San Diego has a law library. Back in the late 1800s, the California legislature decided that they wanted a place in every county in California that the people could go to research and understand and get information about the law for themselves. And so we are here to provide everyone with their legal needs and provide access to justice for all the people of San Diego County. And one thing that I kind of want to talk about here in San Diego County is, although we have many law firms and legal practitioners, many people find that it is unaffordable for them to hire an attorney for their civil legal needs. And so what we do is we focus on information for civil cases, things like family law, small claims court, real property disputes, so that people can get the assistance that they need without having to hire an attorney. Now, we are not lawyers. We are librarians. So our job as reference librarians is to find the resources that help people with their legal questions. So what we want to do is make sure that people's legal needs don't go unmet. And that's traditionally where we've been. These images are a picture of our building, our main downtown location on Front Street. We're about a block and a half from the San Diego County Courthouse, so we're easily accessible to people coming from the courthouse with their legal research questions. So, but about a year ago, back on March the 16th of 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were forced to close our physical locations of the law libraries. And that really sent us kind of into a tailspin, trying to determine how we could serve the public while our physical locations are closed. So, Eddie, if you want to advance the slide, please, I would appreciate it. So it was chaos for a few weeks. We had to make sure that we got the hardware and software that we needed to function, and just to determine what services we were going to offer. And so what we did is, at first, we worked really hard to make sure that the public had access to the legal databases that are usually available at the law library. We really made sure that we updated the current information that we had. We also started putting out a lot of information on our YouTube channel, which Eddie is going to talk about later. And we also decided that we wanted to continue doing the reference services that we had done in person for so long. We were just shifting to doing them by telephone and by email. And what we found when we were doing all of these reference calls is that we were getting a lot of the same questions. People had a lot of questions that were related to the pandemic. They wanted to know about their stimulus checks. They wanted to know about the closures of the courthouses. They wanted to know about the health regulations that were coming out. So that was one big topic that we found, kind of pandemic related legal questions. We also found that we were having a lot of questions about like the things that were timely. For example, tax season was coming up and people were wondering, how is tax season going to be affected by COVID? And then we also found that there was a lot of questions about the areas of law that are always very popular with the public. Things like landlord-tenant issues, especially during COVID. People were wondering about eviction moratoriums. They were wondering about family law. People were needing to change their visitation schedules, and that was affecting how child support was going to be paid. People were losing their jobs or being furloughed. So that was a really big topic. And so these were the things that we wanted to make sure that people had a reputable resource to go to find information on these topics. So once we identified these topics, what we did is we started looking for resources that could provide information that were reputable. So we wanted to make sure that we were looking at governmental websites, we were looking at nonprofit organizations that we had vetted and knew were providing good information for people. And we also wanted to look at our local legal service providers, places like Legal Aid Society of San Diego Volunteer Lawyer Program. And so what we did is we compiled this information into our COVID-19 legal resources page. And we started with the English version. So Eddie, if you could advance the slide, that would be great. So this is kind of an overview of what our webpage looked like for the COVID-19 legal issues. And you can see there's some of the topics that we selected: health, where all of the notices about the COVID restrictions were, employment, housing, consumer debt, utilities, government benefits. These are some of those topics that we realized were important topics for the community. And then, Eddie, if you can advance the slide, you can see that this is an example of what they look like. You can see here, this one's about reopening California from quarantine. And so what we did is we put in there the information. What we usually do is we have a link to a reputable website, and then we'll just have a little summary of what the most recent information states. So you can see here under the reopening California, we have an update, which we're constantly updating these. We try to update at least weekly. And so it talks about the most recent stay-at-home order, or if there's any videos from governmental organizations. For example, in our tax information page, we have embedded videos from the IRS about the tax season that gives people some direction. So that's kind of what the pages look like. And, we did really well with these, but we found that we were missing out on serving a large part of the San Diego County population, because these are English language resources. And so we decided we really needed to create some Spanish language resources. And Luz is going to talk about how we started to do that.
Thank you, Valerie. Well, let me give you some facts. According to the website Data USA, 34.1% of the population in San Diego County are Hispanics, and 24.9% of San Diego County residents are native Spanish speakers. Spanish speakers are facing eviction, foreclosures, bankruptcy, and to make matters worse, there is not a lot of Spanish legal information available to them. So we face this reality during normal times, let alone during the pandemic. So what do? Well, we take them to the English resources we have available for their particular issue. We also ask them if they have someone, a friend, a daughter, a son, that can help them with the information, to translate it in Spanish. And sometimes this is all they need to feel empowered and to take care of their issue. At our library, we might not have the Spanish legal resources that we would like to help them, but we do have Eddie and myself that are Spanish speakers, and the other librarians that know a little bit of Spanish. But what we do have is compassion for people that are overwhelmed with their legal situations. In each interaction, our goal is to educate and empower. Well, for these reasons, we knew it was imperative that we provided our COVID-19 information in Spanish. In doing this, our goal was to make these pages user-friendly. We wanted each user to feel comfortable, encouraged, and motivated to navigate through the information and hopefully find the answers they were looking for at their fingertips. So after the resources were compiled and vetted in English, the next step was to translate them into Spanish. One of the challenges that we that we had was that we had to be sure that the legal terms were the ones that people were familiar with, and but also we didn't want them to lose the legal meaning. Our job was to do the translations of the headings and introductions, making sure that the legal terms used were the ones most popular and familiar with. This project began on March 16, 2020. And in a nutshell, this was our process. First, we went through the links of the English pages and found some Spanish language versions that we were able to use. We saw no reason to reinvent the wheel. We worked with Google Docs using a file of approximately 24 pages in length with headings, introductions, and links. We make sure the headings and introductions were an accurate Spanish translation. We use Google Translate as needed. We checked over 124 links to make sure they were valid. And we finally went live on April 13, 2020. With this ever-changing situation, we continue to monitor numerous sources and will update these pages as new information becomes available. And now let's go back to Eddie to talk more about our other Spanish resources.
Thank you, Liz. So one thing actually that and I just want to take it back to you, Luz, if you could comment on this that I saw you mention too, that I feel a lot of people don't talk about, is how having that friend or having someone there who, you know, speaks both languages is really something of benefit. And when it comes to that, not only are we law librarians, but we're also, like you said, we're also there to listen. And at that point, it's you're not only meeting a legal need, but you're meeting an emotional need, a psychological need. So
exactly, when those patrons come through our doors or are communicating with us, they are so overwhelmed with so many issues. And a lot of times what we try to do is just, okay, let's take it one thing at a time. So you're facing an eviction. Let me give you the information that is just for your particular issue. And, you know, especially with some of our English material like NOLOs, we know that the whole step 1, 2, 3, they're there. So that's all they need. They need someone that sits with them and just says, okay, well, this says, and they can just follow their examples. I mean, yes, it really makes a big difference to have someone by your side.
right. And now transitioning back to COVID-19, this really did change things for us, right? Because then the question becomes like, how do you provide the tools for someone else, in this case, virtually, remotely, during the COVID era, if you will? How do you do that, right? How do you do that? And for us as a library, ultimately, one of the resources we turned to was YouTube. And YouTube, just like anything else, is a great tool. But if you don't know how to use it, or like you mentioned, the Google Translate tool, all of these are great tools. But if people don't know how to use them, essentially they're worthless. So part of the trouble isn't just having the tool, but it's making sure everyone knows how to use the tool, use the technology to actually be able to obtain the information. So for us, given that the information should be provided to everyone, the question for us as librarians was, how do we make that more that information accessible aside from simply compiling Spanish content? And again, just like, you know, you said, Luz, we have to work with what we have. And I really can't stress that enough. And and I know both Val and Luz could testify to this, that sometimes we overcomplicate things a little bit and we stress out, you know, or we feel like we're losing our minds. But it really does go to show that sometimes the easiest place to begin is just to work with what we have. And that's exactly what we did. So we worked with what we had here. And in this case, we went ahead and created 3 YouTube videos as a result. Now, the very first YouTube video that was created, all of them were created via screencast, which is, I'm not really going to get into it right now, but it's just simply like they're watching me go through the motions again. So not only in this case are they getting a visual representation of what it takes to use a tool, but they're actually having someone else walk through it visually. And that goes back to the very first video, which is a screencast of myself using the Google Translate tool in order to create that visual representation step by step of the technology that we are incorporating to make information accessible. And as a quick note, that Google tool, the Translate tool, really is a great tool that translates all of our guides and research, anything else really, not only into Spanish, but a host of other languages. So these tools really are advancing at an exponential rate, and the possibilities, right? The bright side of this is the possibilities are endless. But moving on, moving on. The second YouTube video, and let me just go ahead and move the PowerPoint here as well. Oh, the second YouTube video that we created was also a screencast, which enabled subtitles in Spanish and by default allowed much more of our materials to be available to the Spanish-speaking population many San Diegans call home. Now, the question is why is this video important, or why did we decide on this? Now, just like Valerie said, a lot of the information is in English. So what if you could use a technology to automatically make something into another language? In this case, the spoken word. If we have a webinar that's in English, and I'm not going to go into the technicalities of whether the person was enunciating and whether the technology can actually capture the words they're saying and translate them, but in theory, this does work, and we've seen it play out for ourselves in our webinars and our content. So the reason this video was very important to us as a quick tool that we could use is because the information was already out there in English, and this would translate all of that information to Spanish. And in this case, we're not talking about, again, about writing in terms of compiling written sources, but we're talking about language, the written, verbal, how we use words to communicate. But enough about that. What about that third video that I mentioned, right? So I know you're all probably curious. The third and last video that we created was a screencast to highlight the resources the San Diego Law Library has in Spanish, and more importantly, help bring exposure to the law library amongst the Hispanic community in San Diego, while simultaneously also creating awareness about what services and resources we as a library have available. Now, the question here is why is this so important again? Because that's really the driving home point. Why are we doing this? Now, this third video was twofold. One, it showed what resources are additionally there that we compiled on our website. But secondly, we need that exposure, right? People, and it always it's like I really want to help people and I really want people to understand, and all I have are my hands, right? My hands and my voice, but I really can't emphasize this enough, where if we as an organization are still blind amongst the community, to a certain point, we can have all these tools out there. We could be putting all of this out there, but if no one knows who we are, then we're not in their minds. We're not a resource, really. So the third video of highlighting us and highlighting those Spanish resources was one to let people know, like, we're here. And not only that, but going back to Luz's point, or like Valerie's point about love and compassion and everything else, it's like, we want to be there by your side, right? We want to be there and provide access to justice for every single person. And in this case, that third video for us was an invaluable piece that we thought was necessary for us as a library. But with that being said, why don't you go ahead and take us home, Val? Oh, you're on mute.
I think Eddie brings up a really good point about reaching out, because I think the biggest problem that we have as a library is that people don't know that we exist. And especially if you are not a native English speaker, our our organization may not be a resource that's on your radar. So that's a huge part of what we want to do at this point, is let people know who we are, what we do, and that we are available for everyone. A lot of people, once I speak with them, constantly at the grocery store or, the doctor's office, and I tell them where I work and I tell them about what we do, they have no idea that the San Diego Law Library exists. They have no idea what kind of resources we have. So outreach is a huge part of what our motivation and goal is going forward. And so some of the ways that we've reached out to the community, especially during the pandemic, it's really a kind of forced us into a lot of new technologies that allow us to reach more people. So, when we're talking about these videos on the YouTube page, YouTube is the most popular social media organization. Everybody watches YouTube videos. I was just talking about how when I was learning to edit videos, I would watch YouTube videos on editing YouTube videos. So this
Right.
is a resource that everybody is utilizing, and being able to put content out there easily, quickly, in an updatable format in Spanish language and English language videos was wonderful for us, because we can reach so many more people than hosting something physically in one of our locations where we have a limited space that can only seat a limited number of people, that is inconvenient for people to go to. It may not be at a time that's good for them. Now they can watch these videos whenever they want, from wherever they want, and get the information that they need.
Right,
And so
Val?
that has been a huge part of it. Did you want to say something about that, Eddie?
Yeah, no, yeah, just to add on to that, and this just, I don't want to take away from our topic at hand, but one thing this really does touch on also is the literacy gap, right? It's not necessarily sure how many people can read, and especially read that well, but it's a whole nother thing. We do know that a lot more people can understand language and understand words. So making sure that the YouTube videos, in terms of the subtitles or content, or just having these videos out there, we know a lot more people can visually see and understand. And it's not always certain how many people are exactly literate to a proficient level to understand some of these government websites. So yeah, I love everything you said, Val, and I just, wow, take it away.
Yeah. So what we did is we are creating content. We're creating content ourselves, as Eddie was talking about the videos that he's created, just walking people through some of the tools that can be used to access information for Spanish speakers. But we've also been working with community organizations and hosting webinars on specific topics. A great example that we have coming up is the Legal Aid Society of San Diego has a low-income taxpayers clinic, and they're going to be doing a webinar for us entirely in Spanish that we are recording, and then we're going to post on our YouTube channel so it can be there as a reference. We're also cataloging all of these videos. So if anybody stumbled across our website, wasn't aware of our YouTube page, and just started looking through our electronic catalog, they could find these videos through our catalog searches. Another thing that we're doing is we're really trying to promote everything that we're doing on our other social media pages. So, we have been posting it on Twitter. We've been putting it on LinkedIn. We've been putting it on Instagram. But a lot of the stuff that goes out is on Facebook. Facebook is a very popular social media channel. And what we started to do is utilize Facebook to provide weekly updates for people on all of the things that we have going on at the law library.
Right.
So every Thursday at 2 p.m., we have a Facebook Live event that we call What's Happening Now at the San Diego Law Library. And it just goes over what's going on, what events we have coming up, how to access them. If we have any new resources that we've created, we can talk about them on those Facebook Live events. And that way, nobody has to register. It's recorded. They can watch it whenever they go to our Facebook page, and it can just provide an update. It kind of goes along, it mirrors our weekly newsletters, which we also put out every Tuesday. And the weekly newsletters are just sort of the written version of that. They have links to any events and how to register for them. It also has just information about the San Diego Law Library and what's going on with us, updates on
Right.
when we're going to go back to the library to work again. But even when we go back to the library, we want to continue to do all of these things because we've had such a great response. Another thing that we've really worked on is partnering with other public libraries like the San Diego County Public Library, the Chula Vista Public Library System. Up in Oceanside, we've been working with the Oceanside Public Libraries to promote all of the community-oriented events that we have been hosting. So, for example, with the San Diego Public Libraries, we have created a bookmark in Spanish and English. It's a double-sided bookmark that has information about the San Diego Law Library and how to contact us. So that's another big part of what we're doing. And again, we're always wanting to partner with community organizations so that we can boost each other, whether it's Legal Aid Society, whether it is the North County Bar Association or the Community Law Project at California Western School of Law. We are trying to work with more people to get more resources and to get everybody's name out there so people know who's out there to provide legal information to the community. So we've got some great programs coming up. And again, everything that we are every webinar that we do with the permission of the speakers, we are recording them and posting them on our YouTube page. We are making sure that we talk about them on our social media channels. So that's one great way to keep up with us. And you can see here, we've got all of our social media accounts up and how to find us on social media. And so kind of going forward, like what does the future look like for us? Again, as I mentioned, even when we go back to the physical buildings, we are going to continue to do the work that we have been doing while we've been in lockdown. And we want to grow. We want to, we understand that there might be populations that we're not reaching. There might be resources that we're unaware of. And so we want to hear from our colleagues, our patrons, the community at large to hear about your ideas about how we can do better and be better. Because as librarians, we are always adapting. We're adapting to things like the pandemic, we're adapting to new technologies, and we're adapting to the new needs of the community. And so we would love to hear from you and want you to reach out to us with any ideas that you might have. And our contact information is right here. So you can see that's our contact information. We have our email addresses there. So feel free to reach out and email us if you want to partner on an event, if you have a suggestion for us. We want to be responsive to the needs of our community. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and with the event, we are so excited to present to you.